Okay, I think that's us. Okay, cool. Hello, guys, and welcome to. Well, it's not even a channel. It's kind of just a reason to have a discussion today about something a little bit different, something I'm hugely passionate about. For a lot of you who know me on Twitter, I talk about Aston Villa a hell of a lot. I talk about mental health a hell of a lot. But there's this hidden kind of in the background passion, interest of mine that has been ladies football since I was coaching at quite a low level when I was much younger, and all the way through my career, I've kind of been really onto ladies football, following women's football. And I thought today it was really important that with the introduction of Her Game 2 and the kind of campaign that's ongoing at the moment, it would be good to have a discussion about that. So I'd love to welcome the special guests today. So I've got Tom from Villa and Proud. Hi, Tom.
Hiya, how you doing?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. So
Good. I've got Lucy Ford, co-founder of Her Game 2. Lucy, how you doing?
Hiya, I'm good, thank you. Hope you're well as well.
I am, thank you. And then finally, Gemma from Leicester City Ladies. How are you, Gem? You okay?
Yeah, good, thanks, Alan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Awesome. So what we're going to do is just run through some kind of questions, discussions, raise some points, and kind of talk about what we're here to talk about. So first kind of thing I'll do is introductions. So fly into you, Gem, first. A little bit of an introduction about yourself. Who are you? What have you done? Why are you special? Etc.
Yeah, so I'm Jemma Purfield, currently playing at Leicester City Women in the Women's Super League. Previously been at Bristol and Liverpool, and was out in the States for university playing there for a little bit. Yeah, that's me. Left back's my position. Like to go forward.
Lovely, Gem. Thank you. And Lucy?
So I'm Lucy. I'm one of the co-founders of Her Game 2, which was a campaign launched in May 2021 to combat sexism in football. And yeah, I support Bristol Rovers. I've been a Bristol Rovers fan since I was 10. I'm 25 now, so long 15 years. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Lovely. Thank you, Lucy. And finally, Tom?
Yeah, so I'm Tom. I'm a big Villa fan. I'm on the committee at Villa and Proud. So we set up to increase inclusivity in football, make sure that football is a game for everybody, specifically obviously the LGBTQ plus community, but that encompasses people of all races, genders, and identities. So it's really important for us to make sure that football is somewhere where everyone feels welcome.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, guys. Okay, first question then. Let's fire in straight away then, Luce. So current situation in women's football. Where are we at? What are we looking at? What does it currently show itself as?
I mean, I think the picture in women's football is really, really good, personally, because this weekend you had the women's football weekend, which I know for a fact was a huge success. I went to go watch my own team. We have a women's team now. It's only kind of come out of into fruition for the last couple of years. So they play at I would say perhaps grassroots level, but kind of like Gloucester kind of county league. They've won 9 out of 9 games. They are flying at the top of the league. And I found myself really enjoying myself, actually. I'll put my hands up and say I haven't watched loads of women's games live, but doing this campaign, I've really felt like there's a vested interest to get more interested in women's football, because I've watched men's football for so long. So why can't I watch the women too? And I have found myself really enjoying it. I think next summer is a huge opportunity in this country to support women's football with the Euros. I'm attending the opening game myself. I'm really excited to go with my friends, Old Trafford, and I think there's no reason why we could have the support that this country could give the women's players could be the same as the men's. And this in the summer, this summer, sorry, because I think because we're in November now, my years are all getting confused. But yeah, so obviously with the men getting to the final of the Euro 2020, even if it's in 2021, and it was
I'll
never
forget.
Yeah, I know, and because it felt like in such a difficult time, it kind of united everyone, and the support, everyone together watching the games was amazing to see. And I think there's no reason why the women shouldn't have the same support. So yeah, but I still think there's a long way to go. I think there's still some things like, sexism, people saying, what's the point of the women's game? They say things like, they only play, they should play on smaller pitches. They can't deal with the physicality of the game. I was like, well, I've seen the girls play and they actually really try, the Bristol Rovers women's play, and I was listening to a podcast actually from our manager and their co-founder of the girls, and they were saying how they're really working on fitness, and obviously they don't get paid. I don't think they get paid to play yet. I think they're just kind of working their way up. They're not professional yet. They're kind of semi-pro, but they're still putting in the effort and the work to get themselves up to a good level. And you could see it on Sunday. I really enjoyed it. Some of the goals were outstanding. I think one of the girls scored from 20 yards. Was like, I'm no good at sport. I'll put my hands up. I could not play football. I would trip over. I would probably break my leg. I'm too injury prone, but I have an appreciation for them and how fit they are, how much time and work has to go in. And it's not even that. It's things like physios, sports psychologists, sports analysts, and but getting that in the game as well, I think is so important.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Luce. Gem, so your take, I guess, is a little bit different to Lucy's and Tom's. You've played the game since as long as I can remember, since I knew you when you were 13, one of the standout stars in your age group at that age, going all the way through now to the professional game. Like, how is it now in the professional game? How is ladies football, women's football? Where does it stand? What's going on?
Yeah, I think, do you know what? It's actually come a really long way. When I was 13 back then, I was looking up to part-time footballers. There wasn't a professional that I could really look up to. It wasn't a professional game. So I think that transition in itself is massive, and it's been really important. I think it's amazing for the next generation to now have people to look up to and to aspire to be like, and to see women's football on TV, to watch their role models week in, week out, and come chat to us after games. I think one thing about women's football that's really good is we make a lot of time afterwards for the fans to try and speak to all the little girls and boys and families that come and watch us. And I think it's really nice. It's quite a family atmosphere at our games, so it's really good for that. So I think in terms of where it's going, it's in the right direction. We've come a really long way from where we were to be professional, to be able to make a living out of playing football. It wasn't known when I was a kid, so it's a dream come true. But I think it's still got a way to go. We've still got to bridge the gap in certain areas, but we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, it's good. Like, for me, it's kind of like, things that have changed for me that are the most obvious things are the attention and the awareness around the game. The coverage now that it gets on big social platforms, big media platforms. The WSL is talked about a lot regularly. It's always an advert on the next show about something going on in the ladies' game. You now play in the men's stadiums. That's correct, right? So a lot of the games taking play now is in the same place where the men play their fixtures, which is amazing. That's only going to increase the kind of crowds, the capacities that can turn up and watch the games to support you ladies when you're playing. Yeah, I mean, anything else, Tom? Do you reckon anything else that you've seen change over the years? What's going on in your head for it?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is the coverage we're seeing of the women's game now. So you're seeing the Women's Super League on Sky Sports now, and on at the same time, kind of in between men's games or just before men's games, that you bring in people that maybe don't have as much knowledge of the women's game and are going to watch a Premier League game and go, oh, hang on, I can watch the Women's Super League, and will realise actually what a high level of professional sport you can watch in the women's game. And I think that's something that will probably surprise a lot of people, because as we'll obviously come to later, I think there's some attitudes that's still lingering from the past that people don't necessarily understand just what high level of athlete you can see in women's football. And I think that's only positive that this exposure is constantly increasing, and I think we're going to end up in a really good place, hopefully. Yeah,
absolutely. Jem, what was it like over in the States? Because kind of different over there with the soccer and football for ladies, right? They're kind of like 5 years ahead, I would say, aren't they? How is it over there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that they are ahead in terms of their structure of how to get girls through to the professional game. They've got the college structure there. You're basically a full-time footballer, and then you go to university on top of it, which I think is fantastic. I always wanted a degree personally, because football in itself can be a short career depending what happens, touch wood, but things happen in football, and I think it's important to have something to fall back on. And I think that's what the American structure looks at really well. It gets you that degree, but also pushes you at a higher level. I think physically they're on another level, and I think we're starting to catch that. But their league out there's like really, really good. It's up there with the top teams in our league, and I think because of the structure they have in, you're treated like a professional from probably a lot younger than you are here, so you're exposed to that earlier on.
Yeah, is there a different mentality? Is there a different mindset with the coaches and the game, do you think?
I think the attitude towards just women's football in general over there's a different mentality in terms of the money they throw at it, the funding, the structure, the facilities. That's all second to none from the age of probably about 12 over there. You wouldn't be playing on a standard Sunday league pitch. Yeah. In many places in America, they're all on great pitches. They've all got nice changing rooms. It's all done properly. So I think that's the difference. That's where we can probably learn. It's putting that pathway in place, which I do believe is getting a lot better to be able to then compete later on when you're professional football. It bridges that gap.
You're very lucky, actually, that you've had that kind of background as well, eh? You've had that kind of input into your career, which makes you really appreciate what women's football can be like, or what it's aiming to be here in the UK. So that's really cool. Luce, in terms of like getting involved with ladies clubs as a campaign, as an awareness, as a group wanting to make change, how easy is it to get into ladies football for kind of commercial side of things and marketing and campaigning and partnering with these female clubs? Because I've seen that Her Game 2 are doing a hell of a lot of that recently, lots of partnerships going on, which is great. But how easy is that for you? How easy has it been, or has it faced some challenges?
It's been interesting, actually. So obviously when we started the campaign, we didn't know what sort of reaction we were going to have. We didn't know if people were going to say, oh, you're just 12 girls just saying it. But obviously when we did the initial video, it had 1 million views in 24 hours. So we realised that something big was going to happen. And then, yeah, as time went on, when we did our survey, and over 90% of the women who took part had said that they experienced some form of sexism, either in a pub or at the ground or online, for being either female football fan, female football player, physio, whatever it was, their interest in football. It was a real shocking statistic. However, it then realised that we needed to do something more. We needed to go to these clubs and be like, right, you've got these campaigns in place for, homophobia, racism, which are equally as important, but there's something else that you could do to make these grounds safer space. So obviously we reached out to a lot of the Football League clubs who have all been really willing to put a reporting system in place. But then also grassroots clubs and non-league clubs have got in touch, but not just men's teams, women's teams as well. So it's a lot of the time they're approaching us. They've seen us on social media, or a local team have partnered. So they're like, oh, well, we want to get involved too. So that's really how we've kind of got in touch with them. But then I kind of sat there and I thought to myself, so we'd partnered with Forest Green, and their ladies have got us on their shirt sleeves. So our logo is on their shirt sleeves.
So good.
Which was amazing. And Bristol Rovers women, who were our first Football League club, but second club to partner. On the women's side, they've got us as their away shirt sponsor, and they donated that to us for free, which was an incredible gesture so early on into the campaign, just to put us out there to other clubs. I was then keen to actually, it's great to partner with the Football League clubs, but I thought actually there's an opportunity to partner with women's teams as well. And I reached out to a number of clubs in the obviously WSL and the Women's Championship as well, just to see if they wanted to partner up. Obviously, it's a little bit harder because some of these teams are linked in with Premier League teams, so it's harder to get contact. But we've been thankful actually to partner up with Coventry United and playing the Championship, and just this weekend we announced that we partnered with Reading Women, who play in the Super League as well.
That's good.
That was a really big deal to all of us, but especially to me, because they actually reached out to us. They were like, we're really keen to do something with you, and I know there's some more of exciting things coming out of how we're going to partner and hopefully be able to go to a game. So I think for us it's obviously as many partnerships as possible, spreading the word as far as wide, not only just in this country but in other countries as well. We have had contact from people in Bahrain and Australia, grassroots clubs, women's clubs over there, or academies have said, we really want to partner with you. We want to push the women's game, especially in Australia, as they've got the World Cup in 2023. And yeah, for us, it's just,
Great.
getting the sport out there and just just showing to everyone that it's her game too, and everyone can enjoy the game of football.
Love it. Awesome. So based on that last thing then that Lucy said there, then, so talking about this notion of men's football, women's football, we all want it to be on this equal playing field, but why, Gem, has there been this comparison, this relentless comparison between the women's game and the men's game? So I'll just throw something out there for an example. Let me think, what rubbish have I heard over the years? So they'd never be able to play against men, though. They're not that good. Why is there that comparison all the time? Surely the two are very separate professions. Females do your thing, men's do your thing. No comparison needed. You're both elite players. Get on with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, just to anyone that, if you sit and think about it logically, men and women are never physically going to be the same. That's genetic. So we're never going to be as fast. We're never going to be as strong. We're never going to be as powerful, and that's fine. That's just genetic. Can't do anything about that. So I think once you've got your head around that bit, you take them as two separate games. Like, the quality of the football can be just as good. It may be slightly slower. It may, not be as quick to watch, but the talent's the same. The hard work's the same. How we go about our day is the exact same. Our training routines and everything, it's all the same. The only difference is we're not physically as capable as they are in that sense. But I think when you look at it technically, tactically, you'll start to realise they're not as different as you think, and you just have to take it for what it is. And I think also something that people need to remember is how far behind the women's game is. Some of these young lads are training from being 8 years old in professional clubs. We turned professional, 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah.
And that's only from the top. And then we've got to work backwards and start putting that in place to, have a professional environment from a younger age and have these academies set up so you get an exposure to being a professional athlete from a younger age. So I think, you just got to take it for what it is. The comparison's ridiculous. It just is what it is. And I think when you watch it properly, the talent of the women's game is coming on, and I think it'll continue to as the foundations are set in place for women's.
Yeah, totally agree. I think it is ridiculous, and the amount of people that you hear say comments, just people don't even think about it, and they don't engage their brain before their mouth. That's the problem. Like you say, women are women, or built up with the women biology is very different to anything built up in the men's biology, and the two are never going to be, on the same platform in regards to biology and what is possible about an elite athlete under those two genders, So, Tom, what about you, mate? Where do you feel that comes from? Why is society like that? Why is that still very present in kind of the football, whether it's females or males? Why is it still there?
Obviously, I think quite a lot of it just comes down to sexism. To be honest, there's nothing you can dress it up as. It's the same with, obviously, racism and homophobia. We're seeing it, unfortunately, quite prevalent in football. There's a lot of intolerance still in society, but I think with the women's game, it's like Gemma's saying, the women's game is behind the men's game. I think a lot of people don't realise that the FA banned women's football for about 50 years, and before then, it was actually bigger than men's football. I think there was a women's league match back in the 20s that actually got more spectators than the FA Cup final. And I think now we're so far behind in terms of the women's game, purely in terms of infrastructure and things like that, because of that 50-year gap, that people, you can use that as a stick to beat the women's game with, I suppose. They'll go, well, yeah, but you've got amateur players, you've got semi-pro players right up to the championship and things like that. But actually, the way you should be looking at it is this game's growing really fast, and actually, like we were saying earlier, the quality of the game that you see at these top levels is even more impressive from the fact that you don't have those opportunities to be professional from a young age or from a lower league sort of thing. And I think, I remember when Villa Women were on TV for the first time last season, and we made a mistake. I think it was against Man City. And it was the sort of mistake you see, obviously, in the men's game as well, every week. I think, the defender miscontrols it, whatever. And some of the comments you see are so just A, over the top, and B, just ridiculous. You never see that in the men's game, or this is why you shouldn't be playing football. It's the same standard things where it's rubbish. I mean, we moaned about how rubbish the Villa men's team were for about 10 minutes. So you kind of can't even throw that there, but people using that to disparage kind of the whole men's game. But like I said, I think you can't even compare a sport where you've got £100 million TV deals to a sport that's just growing. And I think the fact that we're seeing the quality in the WSL that we are at such an early stage is really, really promising. And I think those kind of views will very quickly become quieter and quieter and a smaller and smaller minority as more and more people kind of educate themselves about the sport.
Yeah. Is there this is a kind of question for everybody really, is there an impact that the coaches and behind the scenes staff perhaps are making in that notion and trying to reduce that notion? Because there's a hell of a lot of men's coaches in the ladies game, Gem, right? You yourself been managed by several male coaches in the ladies game. I have been a male coach in the Grassroots, particularly Centre of Excellences over the years, with girls and young females. So there is that presence of male coaching and male staffing in the ladies game. So do you think that helps break down those barriers in that comparison, or are we still a long way from achieving what we want to achieve, even with that in place?
Potentially, I think it does probably help. I think it does, get rid of that notion a little bit and say it's kind of for everyone. But I do think there's still a way to go, and I just think it's just going to take time. I think it's people getting used to seeing women's football on TV, people understanding that it's here to stay. It's not like a 1-year thing. I think the Sky deal was massive that we've got in place. I think that's huge, having the same kind of analysis post-match and talking in the studio, because usually if the game's on TV, sometimes it'll be on and it's kind of off. So I think having all that afterwards, it shows that it is moving in the same direction as the men's, and I think it also shows that it's here to stay. It's not going to be off your screens in the next year, so you might as well get used to it. And I think at some point, I hope at some point, people get bored of complaining and commenting and maybe just start to enjoy it. Well, who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is that, isn't there? We people are just going to have to, at some point, those that are in that minority category that always have a problem with everything, particularly women's football, are just going to have to get over themselves and just accept that it is what it is. And there is a hell of a lot of work going on, both on the field and off the field with the likes of her game too, Luce. That's not going to stop. That's going to keep going until finally there is an impact and there is a change. And even when there is a change, I think there'll still be this kind of continuum of work that goes on, because if you stop talking about something, people forget about it and revert back to their old ways. So I think that's really important. So elite level versus grassroots, is there a difference in your opinion, Gem, having been in both categories, made your way through your journey? Is there a difference? Is the impetus different at grassroots level to elite level in the girls' game?
Yeah, I would say there's a difference. I think, again, it's starting to merge. The gap's starting to merge again. So I think the first thing was to bridge the gap between us and the men's side. And then I think the next gap to bridge is that pathway from grassroots to WSL or championship and professional football. I think it is moving in the right direction. I think, more people are going to support their local teams, which is nice. I think there's been a big push for that, especially on social media. I think that's really helpful to get people's attention and get fans down. And I think behind the scenes, it's all getting a little bit better in terms of having changing rooms and proper staff involved and physios, and the treatment for the players as well is getting better. And I think because of that, the standard will get better, which will mean more fans will want to go watch. So I think it's moving in the right direction, definitely. But again, still a way to go.
Yeah, Lucy, with your kind of interest in girls' football at those lower level clubs, those kind of community ladies clubs, is that your impression as well? Is there a focus on girls' football at that really young age to get them interested, to kind of give them some role models, kind of give them that opportunity to step onto that platform and then getting into the elite game? Is that something you've experienced as well?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we are really, really keen about supporting grassroots girls football. So, with our hoodies that we've created, all of our money for any of our merchandise, we put towards grassroots women's clubs because we think it's such a good opportunity to support it. And I was actually chatting to a guy who is a coach himself, and he says for each club they get £85 a year for coaching. That's for a coach for each club. That's not a lot of money.
No.
And I feel like, you know, if we're supporting these grassroots clubs, and you know, then they can get bibs or, I don't know, cones. I know it might not sound like much, but they are so grateful to us for supporting them and for doing this. And that money that they've got for that, they can then they've got that extra money to do something else, like bring in another coach, train them up to, you know, obviously each coach needs to do like their levels and things like that. I understand that, but I think if you've got the funding there, and I do think the FA have to support this as well. If they've got the funding to help improve and, like Gemma said, kind of help build and bridge that pathway, I think you will see like the grassroots game like being like the way into elite level. So yeah, so we're really keen on supporting that, and there are grassroots clubs now that have got our logo, whether it's on the shirt, whether it's on the sleeves, and even that for us for me, I see that and it just makes me smile, because I think they're learning from a young age that they can play football, and especially when you get to, I guess, around like teenage age, I think there definitely needs to be some work done, because in schools, obviously, I know the girls and boys don't really play together anymore, but I've heard of a story. Just recently, one of my good friends, her daughter plays at primary school, but she plays for Bolton Ladies, and she actually said that they were told that the girls couldn't play football at lunchtime anymore because of COVID, but the boys could, and she was like, how's that fair? How is that fair even now? So they were kicking stones around because they just wanted to play football at lunchtime, and so I definitely think there needs to be work done in that sense. But I think grassroots is such a great thing to support, because that's where so many young kids, boys and girls, get into playing football.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, my experience of grassroots, and I'll kind of take my relationship with Gem, I guess, on this one, and many others that have gone into the professional game, like Gem, who I worked with when I was at the several academies as a younger person. The star quality was there, even at 11, 12, 13 years old. Gem was one of a handful that I knew had the potential to make it, and it was there. It was very clear to see, and I think the impact and the impetus on the grassroots level has to be taken seriously, because that is where we unearth our gems. If we don't do grassroots football, if we don't give girls all over the country, whatever age, the chance to play football and just enjoy it and have fun, you're never going to unearth these little talents. You're never going to unearth the quality that we have in the community. There are some girls in that kind of lower secondary school age that run rings around the boys in the playground or whatever, in the parks, and I'm thinking, my God, these girls have got some talent. I coached at Torquay Ladies for a few seasons back, and some of the talent that you get to see is just incredible. And whether they make it or not, you're never too quite sure, because obviously everything has to be in place for a professional to make it into the game. But it's there, and I think that can only be a positive thing, and we have to unearth that. We have to give it a chance and an opportunity to show itself, and at grassroots level too. There's some really good coaches as well. I know Jem will vouch for me. We had a lot of good coaches at the centre when we were there, Jem, right? We had Gordon Staniforth, a really good coach who understood the game very well professionally in his own right, and was able to kind of facilitate a really strong academy of work. And I think that's really positive. And there are some really good grassroots coaches around. Tom, grassroots coaches in Birmingham, your experience of them, they're getting better and better, right? That it's there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. It's going to really develop more as well as we get more funding. Like we say, I didn't know that about the whole £85 a year. That's unbelievable to me. And I think if we've got great talented coaches at all levels, and I think if we can give them the funds and the support and everything like that you kind of take for granted, especially in the men's game, I suppose. And a lot of people like me won't know things like that. They won't know that the funding just isn't there almost to that level. You that you're not going to have the tens of thousands of pounds that maybe some of the men's clubs have, but you don't realise that it's quite that shocking, really. And because the talent is there naturally, all you have to do is you support the talent and it will shine through. And I think we all know that is the case. It's definitely not a case of, we're not seeing people come through because they aren't there. It's always the case if they're not being supported. And I think, especially in Birmingham, but across the country, I think we'll see that start to develop.
Yeah, I think what will happen is the campaigning, the awareness, the work around the ladies' game will just go from strength to strength, and we'll start unearthing way more talent, way more gems, way more potentially world-class female players. And I think what needs to happen is that every club, regardless of the level, needs to be on board with that notion. And I don't know whether it's a lack of funding, cultural changes, underappreciation, no expertise, no knowledge in that club as to the reason why it isn't there. But are those things something that you've recognised, Gem, throughout your changing of clubs and your kind of journey? Is funding a big thing? Is the culture at a club a big thing? Does that impact the way clubs move with their female intentions or not?
Yeah, 1,000%. I think it shows the big 3 or 4, if you like, in the WSL. Your Chelsea's, your Arsenal's, your Man City's, and up and coming Man United, Everton, Brighton, Leicester. I think trying to bridge that gap now between the 3 that have been around the longest. So I think Chelsea, Man City and Arsenal invested their money first and really pushed their women's game. And I think because of that, they've got the rewards and benefits, and everyone else is playing catch up now. But I think the good thing about that is it's pushed everyone else to now jump into that. And I think especially, speaking from Leicester, I think they've been fantastic in supporting the women's side. We moved into the men's old training ground, which is more than what you could ask for. We've got 4 or 5 world-class pitches, and we can take our pick. We've got our own gym, we've got our own hydro, ice bath, hot tubs, you name it, it's on site for us. Literally our training ground, so it's there to hand. We've got analysis rooms, we've got meeting rooms, we've got anything and everything you can think of. And I think that's the next step. It's having those facilities and that backing and the intention to push the club in the right direction. And that was one of the main things that attracted me to Leicester, honestly, because of the way it was pushing the club. And so I think it'll get there. I think it'll get there across the board. But again, it's bridging the gap that was there was never a team for every top team. Like Man United joined the party late, and they're doing it right now. They're really pushing their ladies in the right direction. So I think it will happen. But again, I think it's the lack of funding and it's the lack of thinking about paying it forward, because at times you're going to work in a loss with your women's team. You're probably going to be in debt, if you like, with your women's team. But I think in the long run, it's going to be worth it. Yeah. So I think for me, it's thinking about that and actually paying it forward kind of thing and getting the benefits later on.
Yeah, I absolutely. I mean, well said. I mean, eventually I envisage like every, all top 40 teams in the men's game will have an equivalent top level female team. That's how I see it going. And there's no coincidence that, like you say, Gem, there are that kind of 6, 7, 8 clubs who are always finishing in the top divisions in the men's game, coincidentally have a really strong female side, because the funds have been there in order to give to it. The success that comes with the men's game allows the club to invest in the females game. And I think that's really important thing to notice. So why is it then that we have clubs at different levels that some have a females team, some don't? But that could be the difference between a Premier League club and a League 2 club. So, for example, Cambridge, they have a really strong men's team in their division and actually a really competent and really strong females team in their division. So why have they got a females team, but the likes of Huddersfield haven't, or another team? Why is that?
I just think it's probably just the backing and the vision to see that women's football's up and coming. I think people are seeing it at different times. Some people recognised it, years ago, hence why Man City have had that backing and had that funding and why they're doing so well. Other teams, it may take them a little bit longer to think, actually, women's football kind of is the future of football. It is moving in the right direction. It is going to generate the crowds. It is going to get the attention. It is going to get the coverage. And I think the more it's seen, the more people are starting to think, okay, we need a women's team that needs to be in place. And I think Man United are a prime example of that. They went from not having a women's team to thinking, okay, that looks like the way we should be moving. Yeah. Let's get one in place. And now look at them, they're flying in the WSL. So I think it's just the vision and having the understanding of where women's football is going and having the education and someone within the club pushing that, whoever that is. Yeah. I think that's really important, having someone always backing the women's game.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Luce, there's this lack of funding issue that we're clearly seeing. In some instances, it's not there. In some instances, it very clearly is there. Is with your work around sexism in football, is the lack of respect something that you really have to confront daily? I would imagine that's quite a big issue, right? It's quite a big challenge, that respect that comes from the older men in society, of those cultural norms that existed back in day dot. They still very much exist. I mean, in the men's game as well, but in the females game, that must be something that you come across quite often and probably have to get your knife and fork out and poke a few people often, right?
Yeah, definitely. We definitely I mean, when we started this campaign, we knew that we were putting ourselves out there to get abuse. And, some days it's difficult, but then there's days where, you see a dad tweeting about his daughter who's playing. She's the only girl in a team of boys, and she scored 5 goals and she got player of the match again for the 5th week running. And you just think, and you see his pride in his tweet, and you're just thinking, that times are changing. And I think it shouldn't be because the guy I'm talking about has a boy and a girl, and they both play football, and he's both proud of both of them. But it shouldn't have to be like because you've got a daughter that you're celebrating women's football or you want to watch women's football. I guess my kind of personal experience is like I went to football with my dad and my granddad, so I am lucky in that sense that I was brought up with 2 people who had it didn't matter to them that I was a girl, and I loved football as much as them. And to be honest, I was dragging my dad along to games. Once I started going, that was it. He had no choice in the matter. He was coming along with me. But yeah, no, I think it's hard when you see those attitudes. And I think that was where the problem kind of really started coming to fruition, was lockdown and social media, because, it's like, for example, with the WSL kind of being on TV a little bit more, female pundits, Michelle Owen, Alex Scott, Laura Woods, for example, on TV. And then, or Emma Hayes, for example, who I think is an outstanding pundit as well as manager. Agreed. And they're on the TV and they're talking about the game, and then they might say a word wrong, or they might forget a player's name, which happens, and then they're like, oh, she only forgot it because she's a girl. And you're like, hang on a minute, how many times has a male pundit's got a player wrong, but they won't say, oh, they got it wrong because they're a guy? It just baffles me. And yeah, I think there's definitely obviously a lot of work that needs to be done. But when I think it's part of also when we're getting these grassroots clubs come to us, especially the women's, sometimes it is dads of daughters said, oh, I'm coaching my daughter's team, I really enjoy it, this is why we want to support it, blah blah blah. And I find that quite heartwarming, actually, when you see dads of daughters supporting the campaign and supporting them playing football as well.
Perfect role models, dads, older brothers. I think it's great. And just back to your point about punditry, and females in the punditry business, that I don't have enough pieces of paper in my office here to write down the names of how many male pundits are absolutely garbage and are relentlessly spouting waffle, compared to the actually quite interesting, quite enthusiastic, really, really interesting to watch female pundits in the game. And there aren't that many. you know. So for me, I totally agree with you, and I guess that's the other aspect of all this, isn't it? It's not just the playing and the coaching, it's also the people that advertise the sport, you know, on these programs, Football Focus, Sky Sports, interviewing, you know, how at Villa, for example, Tom, you know, the interviewer who does all of the interviews for the players, for the manager, for the behind scenes staff is a female, you know, stood in the middle of this men's game, interviewing and taking all this information in and being that kind of go-to person. I mean, it's fantastic. It's really, really good. So yeah, I get it. I get it. There's a lack of funding. There's a lack of respect in the game. We've got a long way to go with that respect level for me. I think there's an underappreciation for the female game. And it kind of goes back to what we said right at the beginning, Gem, I guess, where, you know, the sooner we stop trying to put them on the same platform, we appreciate them for what they are, men's and females game, the sooner we can kind of fill that underappreciation void, I guess. Cultures is a big thing. Tom, you're good with cultures. How does a changing culture affect the female game? How is it changing it from 10 years ago to now?
Yeah, I think you see the women's game is far more accepting and inclusive generally. I'd like to think we see a lot more support from the women's game. And I think it's like we talked about earlier. I do really believe that most of these things we talk about are people use as excuses to justify their sexism, and it's the same with homophobia. It's the same with racism. And I think as we're moving towards a society that is a lot more inclusive and accepting, and our culture in that way changes, I think we'll start to see that, yeah, like we were saying earlier, the minorities of people that just speak on these things and give their opinions that obviously aren't necessarily going to be societally accepted anymore, which is obviously quite right too. And I think, and yeah, we see the same. It's quite interesting to listen to Lucy talk about her game too, and some of the comments they see on social media, positive and negative, and it's really, really similar to the stuff we see with Villa and Proud. And it's really just interesting how that kind of notion of football being maybe a straight white man's game is really being challenged. And I think the more that's being challenged, and the more we're realizing that football is something that everyone can feel included in and everyone can take part in, it really is that kind of global game that's almost Agreed. That cliche that people have used. And I think that really is true, that anybody can be involved in football, and the more that we start to move towards a society that understands that, the better. And I think we're getting there. We're getting there slowly.
Yeah, I agree. Shortly. I agree. There's certainly that for years and years we've all been banged into us that there's, you know, football is a community, it's a family sport, everybody can be involved. And yet we seem to face so much challenge and so much battle with making that so-called saying a reality. You know, football is for everyone, and yet we've got to do campaigns to include females into the game. We've got to break down the stigma surrounding the females game. We've got to do this, we've got to do that. And yet 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, we had people saying football is a game for everybody, you know, and that just isn't the case, is it? That just isn't how it is in reality. So, yeah, I agree. We are getting there. The outdated kind of archaic perspectives of female football, I think, are daily being challenged. Whether they are accomplished, whether those challenges are faced and won every day, I'm not so sure. I think there's still a lot of work to be done there. But I guess, like you say, Tom, it kind of includes all kind of diversity issues, all discriminative issues. And I guess the whole package is what we're trying to change, you know, regardless of whether you're a female footballer, a gay footballer, or a what else? Give me some terminology, Tom. Whether you don't like to be a he or a she, whether you like to be an it on the football field, you know, whatever it is you are, you can be it and play the game. And I think that's where we ultimately want to get to as best as possible. Okay, cool. So we've really gone into it there, and I love that. So we're just going to do some quick fire fun questions because I'm all about the fun. So we'll do that. So we'll do a round robin, starting with you, Tom. Favorite match day pie? Quick fire.
No, it's got to be a Balti pie, hasn't it?
Balti. Lucy, favorite match day pie?
I'm going to be controversial here and say I don't like pies. And I used to live in Manchester, and I used to Bath, they used to go mad at me because I said I don't like pies, but I also used to live in Plymouth and I don't like pasties either. So if I had to have one, I'd have a sausage roll.
Oh my lord! Right,
Sorry.
come on, Gem, save us. Favourite match day pie?
Steak and ale pie.
Steak and ale. Yeah, I'm with that. I'd maybe change the ale for kidney, and then you're on steak and kidney. I reckon. Lovely, cool. Hey,
I'm happy with any.
a pie's a pie. Cool. Next one. So, Jem, starting with you. Back around the way. So, summer football or winter football? Interesting. As a pro, would you rather summer or winter?
Summer.
Summer. Why?
Warmer. When you come out
play in the rain
in winter,
Lucy,
5 minutes to get going again.
Summer or winter, Luce?
Oh, summer, definitely.
Come on, Tom. Follow the trend.
Yeah, there's that tradition, isn't there? Boxing Day football, things like that. But like we see in the Euros and the World Cups, you can't really beat watching football in the summer. And I'm a warm weather person anyway, so I'd rather play in the summer as well.
I'm definitely a warm weather person. I spent 2010. Yeah, when was the World Cup? 2010. I was in Ghana for 6 months in the summer, and watching Ghanaians support their team in the World Cup was truly magical. And summer weather was unreal. Little orphans running around on the grass playing football was amazing. Yeah, definitely summer football for me too. Okay, FIFA or Pro Evolution, Tom?
FIFA.
FIFA, Gem?
FIFA.
Lucy?
FIFA.
God damn it. I actually liked Pro Evo. I liked teams being called these strange names, like Aston Villa was West Midlands United or something they were.
West Midlands Village.
Yeah, West Midlands Village. Yeah, I love that. Good. Okay. Most memorable moment as a football fan, Lucy. Most memorable moment.
Oh, this is an easy one. Back-to-back promotion in 2015-16, last day of the season. A guy called Lee Brown scored on the 92nd minute to get us back promoted to League 2, home ground, and I can only describe carnage. And a party down the Gloucester Road, which is where our ground is. We basically blocked off the road after the match, celebrating. All the players coming down the road on people's shoulders. Owner came down the road. Best night of my life.
Amazing.
Best day of my life.
Jem, let me ask you this question as a fan and then as a player.
Oh, okay. As a fan, I think it was probably my first ever football game. I went to watch Everton Leeds United at Ellen Road, and the family are Everton fans, and Wayne Rooney scored the winner. And in the away end with all the Everton fans, it was pretty special, and that was my earliest memory and probably best memory at the same time.
Amazing.
As a player, probably making my England debut and scoring on my England debut was pretty amazing. And I'm hoping one day that can be a senior debut.
It'll come again. It'll come again. I know it. I know it will. Tom?
I'm kind of a bit strange that I'm going to actually say something that I wasn't there in person, but the playoff final in 2019, because it was the first time. So none of my mates were really into football. We all went to the pub and watched Villa together. The guy behind the bar was a Villa fan, and it was the first time I'd ever got all my mates kind of together and forced them to watch a game of football. And we actually, it speaks for itself, doesn't it? They're all Villa fans to this day. And it was just a moment that we didn't think we were going to see. I think 10 games in a row it took to win, to get to that playoff final. And yeah, it was a magical moment, and I'll never forget it.
I agree with you, mate. Best day of our lives as Villa fans. That was, amazing. I can remember it now. I can remember the after party as well. Sweet Caroline. Oh, man. A man who shall not be named at the front of it all. Amazing, mate. Amazing. We don't mention his name anymore. Okay. Last few. So, home or away? Jem, home or away?
Home for the fans.
Lucy, home or away game?
Or away. I love being part of away following. Travelling to away games, especially in League 2 now. You take decent away following. I think we'll take 1,000 next week. Forest Green, all packed out behind the terrace.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it. Yeah, Tom, home or away?
It's got to be home, isn't it? When you've got a stadium like Villa Park.
Villa, Villa, Villa. Jem's going to get a move to Villa one day, I reckon. He's going to get a move to my dream club. I can see
That's what you want, isn't it? When I was moving to Leicester, you were on to me. Is it Villa?
I said it better be Villa, and if it's not, I'll be very unhappy. Last ones then. FA Cup or Champions League? Gem. It's a hard one, isn't it, that?
Champions League, I think.
Champions League.
Best of the best, yeah, Champions League.
Lucy, Champions League or FA Cup?
FA Cup. Yeah, it's got to be FA Cup.
It's magical. FA Cup's magical.
Yeah. I've got some good memories of the FA Cup.
You never know what result's going to come in the FA Cup. You can never,
No.
you never put your money on anything.
Yeah, and we launched on FA Cup final day this year, so I guess it's got a little bit special now.
That was cool. Tom, FA Cup or Champions League?
Champions League, I think. It's just the top level football, and if you win it, well,
Will we one day be saying FA Cup or Super League? Will we?
Oh.
Will we? Do we see that happening? Last question. It's not on here, but do we see that happening? The top 12 teams in the world, Super League. Do we see it happening?
I really hope not.
No, me too. I hope not. The fans are too pivotal, right? We're too much a part of this game. It would destroy that relationship, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cool. Lovely. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. I hope you've enjoyed it, guys. Like I say, something a little bit different. Who knows? We might do another one of these and make a bit of a thing of it, because I think it's really important that we discuss it and we keep supporting the movements and the women's game as much as we can as a community. I think that's really vital. So thank you, Tom, for being a part of today. Lucy, thank you for coming in and being a part of today. And Gemma, love you loads, mate. Thank you for being involved.
Thank you.
And we will speak to you all again soon. Take care.